Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Stories of Hope. Today, I have on Tyson, and I'm so excited to meet you because we've just chatted over Instagram. But I know that you are in the Three Principles community. And so why I hit record, because I was like, I had all these questions. I want to get to know you and how'd you come into how'd you come into the conversation? But I thought I'd hit record so everyone could know it. So yeah, tell me, how'd you come into the Three Principles and then share as much as you'd like.
Okay, great. Um, and thanks for having me on, Lily. I'm excited. This can be fun.
Yeah.
So I came into the principles about, I think, 2 years ago.
Mhm.
I became a nurse 4 years ago, and then um, uh, went into coaching. So I became a nurse coach. I went through my certification for nurse coaching. Um, and through that, I was introduced to the principles, and kind of everything I learned about coaching went out the window. I was like, no, I need to go this way. And everything that I was hearing just made so much sense. And it was a lot of it was like reminders of how to live life, but it gets covered up with, as we know now, a lot of thinking. And So I also I went to Amy Johnson's Little School of Big Change and was mentored by Joe Bailey because I struggled with eating for many, 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 many years. And as I dove deeper into the principles and started getting different realizations, I just noticed not a whole lot was changing in my life, but everything was changing at the same time. And I know people say that, and I'm like, what are you talking about? But I just felt so much better. My parenting changed. So I really saw that um, my kids have their own wisdom, and I don't need to worry about them nearly as much as I was before. And a lot of the guilt that I was feeling, I'm divorced, so I'm a single mom. A lot of the guilt I was feeling and that needing to um, kind of not take care of myself as well because I was always so worried about them. It totally changed. And I've always considered myself a pretty lighthearted parent, but on the inside, I was very like anxious about a lot of things. And so a lot of that started to fall away. And I just noticed my kids are teenagers now and they still want to hang out with me, so I must be doing something right there. And then also I bought a house with my mom about 2 years ago, and um I had a lot of thinking about that, and I was kind of mad at my mom, and it dawned on me like, oh my gosh, I just have a lot of thinking about the situation. A lot of it doesn't have anything to do with my mom, what she's doing or anything. And also our relationship has gotten a lot better. And I think probably the biggest change, well, probably parenting is probably the biggest change, but another area that has really been changed is work. So I work as a nurse. I used to work in labor and delivery, and now I work in mental health, so a locked mental health unit. And I went to Bill Pettit's Iowa. uh, The destination is
Oh
the
yeah.
journey is the destination,
Yeah.
something like that. Yeah, and I did that before I started this job as a mental health nurse. Um, and I kind of thought, well, if I learn from Bill Pettit, then I'm gonna fix everybody that I that I work with, which was not the case at all. But I just went into it a lot more lighthearted and a lot with a deeper understanding that the patients that I was going to be seeing have their own resilience and their own well-being within them. And um, even with that understanding, I still went in, and this is kind of a new realization that I've had. I still was looking to change them and to help them. And I was kind of stressing myself out. Um, because I felt like I wasn't doing enough at work and I wasn't really helping anybody. And a lot of the patients that I see they're in a, a pretty, I don't know what the word would be, critical stage. And they're coming in an emergent situation usually. They're in psychosis or they're catatonic, and they're with us for sometimes weeks, but usually it's like a week or two just to get their meds adjusted and things like that. And I wanted to have like this big impact on them while they were with us there, or with me at least in my care. And it was like I thought that I was going to bring them from this level of complete chaos to living in a mansion. Like
Yeah.
that's kind of the metaphor I use, but um, and then it dawned on me, like, I don't need to change them. They don't need to change, and their level of well-being might be different from what I would expect for me or other people. But all I can do is help them have an easier time. And the only way I can do that is if I'm having an easier time. So if I'm coming from a place of love and understanding and this deep knowing that they're okay, even though on the outside it might not look like it, um, then that's all I can do is just come from that solid foundation. That was really, really big for me to see. And it's made it's made my job a lot easier and going to work a lot less stressful.
Yeah.
So that's how I got into it, and I kind of rambled on about some other things.
Well, no,
Yeah.
I mean, and I just love it. What made you, and this is maybe going back, I've never,
Mhm.
well, until I've been in the three principles, because I know there are a lot of nurses who have done, three principles training and coaching, but what made you want to, look into coaching to support being a nurse?
Because just being in the healthcare system, I can see that. Well, I'll go back even farther. So before I went to nursing school, I was a yoga teacher and did Thai body work and Reiki. And going into nursing school, I really wanted to integrate everything. And I was like, throughout nursing school, my like mission was I'm gonna empower people to live their best lives. And I thought through nursing, I was gonna do that. And I got my first job on a med surge unit. This was right before COVID. And like nobody wanted to get back. Nobody wanted to get better. They just wanted a pill, and they wanted, and the doctors were, in that mindset too, where you come in, you get a pill, and you go on your merry way. There were some people who I could talk to about other things, but that was that was kind of the the majority of the people that I was working with were um, not seeing the bigger picture and the whole thing. And then I went to work at a more holistic hospital in labor and delivery, and I loved it. We did a lot of natural births, and really empowered women to see how amazing their bodies were, and that they could give birth, naturally or not, whatever they thought was right for them. No judgment, healthy baby, healthy mom was kind of the outcome. But the schedule wasn't good. I had to work overnight, so that's how when I went into mental health nursing. And I saw though with that job that people do want to get better, they just don't know how. And our healthcare system is not set up to really promote health. It's really set up to um I hate to say it, but promote disease. and you get stuck in the system. And I've really seen that within the mental health system, that people are really just, they're constantly circulating in. And I really wanted a different way to help people. and coaching kind of seemed like the obvious thing. And so that's how I got into the coaching. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. What do you, and this might be weird. Um, if you were, well, you have a platform now, but I was like, what if you were teaching, like, what would be the three kind of important things? Well, I guess there's two questions I'm curious about. Like, what were some of your insights? And because some of it maybe would be the same thing that you would share. Like, if you had a class of nurses, what would be some of the most important lessons in health that you know now that, and maybe as you said, some of it's like that you know that it's not taught, but maybe that you learn from the principles. Um, and it could even just be two, like two of your insights, which might be the things that um, that you would share with your class of nurses or anybody kind of going into mental or physical health.
Yeah, good question. And I think I, I can go two different ways with that. So for nurses, I've seen um, so with nurse coaching, a lot of people think you just coach nurses, but it's both. You can coach nurses or patients. And with nurses, I think the biggest thing is burnout. And as nurses, I've seen that a lot of nurses thrive on being busy, not taking breaks, and putting patient care ahead of their own care.
Yeah.
And I was always the one that was like, no, you need to get off the unit, you need to go take a break and take care of yourself. It's kind of that the whole
Put your
oxygen
on first.
oxygen mask first. And so I think that is one thing. And within that too is that I think it comes from a really good place, but nobody else needs to be saved either. And um, um, putting your own well-being is only going to help other people, bring that out in other people. So if you go into a patient's room knowing that you have taken care of yourself and your well-being is obvious and you're kind of shining for that person and calm for that person, it's only going to help them see that within themselves, because you can bring them to that same level that you're on. So you can bring them from their worried state, because a lot of times we do deal with patients who are very worried or scared or they're in pain. And if you come in there frantic, you're not going to help the situation at all.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so I think, and that was a big thing. And I've always been kind of a fairly calm person, but there were situations where I thought that I had to not be calm, and I thought it was the situation that was creating that. But as we say in the three principles, it's never from the outside, it's always coming from the inside. And
Yeah.
so I think that was a big thing for me, is like I can always drop my thinking and come from that place of well-being. And that's the greatest way to elicit change, is from that.
Yeah.
um, yeah. And also seeing that we don't need to save, I mean, there's critical situations where we do need to save lives, but for the most part in the nursing that I do, um, we don't need to save anybody. And if we can see people and their well-being, and that everybody has it, and it might not be what we consider well-being, and it might not be what our expectation is, but if we can get away from that thinking we know, like up here, like we know what they need, and instead drop into a place of listening first, and being in that space of knowing that they have their own wisdom and they can come up with a lot of their answers on their own. I mean, we have some of the medical knowledge, obviously,
Yeah.
but they have this deep wisdom within them. They know a lot of the answers. that was really big for me to see too, especially in mental health, working with some of the patients, being able to um, not see them as broken and really see that they have wisdom in them too.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I work with a lot of people or a lot of the people that I work with sometimes have a fear of psychosis and a fear of like mental
Mm,
illnesses. Um, and some people are actually, I know they're nurses. And so, I've probably heard of like med school disease that when people are there, they get worried of, oh, what if they have this, Did you
oh,
ever
yes.
um have, worried imagination thoughts, seeing people experience psychosis, or also do you have any um have you come across anybody that um I'm trying to find the right words. I think sometimes I've worked with people that either they have family members or they've seen people and then they get really worried. They have this imagination of what if that happened to me?
Mm,
And um and because I love what you're talking about everybody having well-being, and I completely agree with that. And I've loved Dr. Pettit's Stories of Hope and Dickens and Mark Howard, so many people who have worked with people who, yeah, have returned to a state of mental well-being, a state of peace, even in psychosis. And I also love the addition of what you're saying is there's a whole spectrum of where of mental health. But I guess the two part of like, was that ever a concern for you? Or do you have anything if people were like, oh my gosh, um, I'm so scared of psychosis. How do you do it? What if that happens to me? Like, how do you not let it get into your imagination? I don't know if that's clear, but I'm imagining what my people listening would say. They'd be like, oh, some people might think, um, that's a really big fear for them. And what they're experiencing is just anxiety and imagination and our thoughts getting brought to life. But I think sometimes they think that's really scary that there are people that experience psychosis.
yeah, I think, okay, to answer the first part of have I ever been afraid of that happening to me? I've never been afraid that it was going to happen to me, but being around it all the time, I thought that it was going to lower my level of I don't know, consciousness or my level of well-being because I was surrounded by a lot of people who were caught up in a lot of that. And I, and then I just was like, oh my gosh, I can't catch that, or
Yeah.
the only way I possibly could was through my own thinking. And so just because I know enough about how the mind works and that it will attach to it can run off in so many different ways when we let it, or not even let it, but so I caught that right away, and that helped me, I guess, come in even brighter to work. Like, oh, wait a minute, no, I don't have to lower my I don't know what the right word is, but I don't have to lower myself or my level of understanding because I'm around this. And the better I'm feeling, the better I can serve the people here. And also, there's nothing wrong with them either. I
Mhm.
mean, they're in this state, yes, but it's temporary for a lot of them. And um and from the outside, and it is really obvious. Like, I'll talk to some of the patients and they're having thoughts. I was with this woman just a couple weeks ago, and she was having these really strong urges to she thought she was going to strangle someone, and she's like, it feels like if I don't do it, that thought isn't going to go away. And I was like, oh my gosh, I have thoughts like that too. And not necessarily about strangling somebody, but that's like, it's a lot of people have those thoughts. And it was really like helpful for me to see that all of those thoughts, like everybody has those thoughts sometimes. And for me to be able to explain to her, like, I have those thoughts too, and I have that feeling sometimes too, not necessarily about strangling somebody, but other things where it really feels like if I don't do this thing, that thought's never going to go away, and I have to cave into this this urge, basically. Um, and so it was really helpful for her to see, like, oh, wait a minute, like this is normal. And I'm like, yes, uncomfortable, extremely, very uncomfortable. And nobody wants to, have those thoughts. However, it's okay because it's just our thinking. And just know, I think just for her, just knowing that, like, helped her see it in such a different way. Yeah.
That's amazing. And not to make light of strangling somebody, but it's still a thought of, I need to eat this ice cream. Oh, like an urge to eat
Yeah.
something, and you got
Yeah.
the only way I'm going to stop getting this urge. But yeah, what's behind her just is a big thought. It's like, oh,
Right.
that's a big thought. I need to have a cigarette. I want an ice cream. I have this thought, and I remember hearing about a lot of, there are people who learn about the principles in prison. And there was a man who
Mhm.
he would get this, something would happen. And sometimes it was like, oh, he would have a thought, you have to do this. And he thought, and so he would do it. And when he learned about the principles, he's like, "Huh, I don't have to do every thought that pops into my mind," because it was like, he'd say, oh, you have to go and beat this person up because they said so and so. And it was like, I
Yeah.
have a thought. And it's so, and he said, if I learned this, I wouldn't be here. Um, and
Yeah.
that's so wonderful that you can talk to people about the nature of thought and what's behind an urge is a big thought. But also it's like, it can seem, I'm sure
Mhm.
that it felt so healing for her that she could talk to you about that, without
Mhm.
judgment and an understanding. I work with a lot of people with intrusive thoughts. So it's kind of like, who knows, maybe that was an intrusive thought for her. I don't know. Or was there,
It was, and that's exactly what she
oh,
said. I'm having
oh,
intrusive thoughts right now
oh,
and I
okay.
need help.
Oh,
Yeah. Yeah.
okay. Okay. Yeah. Well, and intrusive thoughts, then I was wondering, since she, went to the hospital because of it, and I think it can feel really scary with intrusive thoughts. The urge is the opposite of an urge, because it's nothing impulsive. It's people are overthinking and they get so scared because they feel like they almost have to hold themselves back from something. Um, because that's something they would never want to do. But they, behind the thought
Right.
is all that energy, it can feel like, um, I have to do something to get rid of the energy, when actually energy just flows. Like we just, sometimes
Right.
it can feel really strong. Like, um, and I was sharing it with somebody yesterday actually about intrusive thoughts, because I used to throw up after I ate food, after I would eat a lot of food, or I would exercise too. And so when I was getting out of that habit,
Mhm.
I felt so uncomfortable being full. Um, and sometimes I would take a bath, and then but sometimes I just couldn't. I just had to sit with that feeling, because I didn't want to throw up or exercise. But I had got in that habit. And so kind of with the urge and the habit. But then it was just energy. It was like it comes in that, and that's when people start to see that we're never stuck. It comes in this energy, and then we don't even have to do anything. Um,
Yeah.
can do something, but there's nothing actually we have to do, because that's how we were designed, for thoughts to flow. And what's behind that habit, what's behind that urge is that thought. It's really a wonderful conversation.
Yeah. Yeah. And and two, it's just like any other thought. It just has, like you're saying, it has more energy to it. And there is nothing that you have to do to get rid of it. And whatever comes up in the moment is okay. So for us that day, she just wanted to walk, and we did a bunch of circles, and it was really cool to see how that energy did just kind of fade down. And it happened a couple other times with her, but to be able to see it, and to be able to show her how it just dissipates. And it wasn't always walking that made it dissipate, but yeah.
Yeah. So how did it end with her? Did she have insights about thought and how if you don't
I didn't work with her till the end of her stay, but I know that by the time she left, when the last time I worked with her, she wasn't having the intrusive thoughts anymore. Um, and I don't know. Um, I didn't get to talk to her a whole lot after
yeah,
that.
it's
That's
still
the unfortunate part, is like I work a stretch and then I'm off for a stretch. So
yeah.
yeah,
But still that's very hopeful,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. Do you have other hopeful stories that you can share?
Um, I'm trying to think of other ones. I have seen people, you were talking about psychosis, and I have seen people come in, in states of extreme psychosis. And once they're settled, and I think some of it might be med management, but there's also a component of just um, being in a different environment and letting all of that settle down. And once they can have that period of combination of meds and that period of just settling things down, um, they come out of it. And it's it's really amazing to see. I have a patient actually right now. She came in catatonic, so she was not speaking at all. And I actually ended up giving her Mavis Karn's book, um, because she turned around so much. And her and I would talk about how her thinking was kind of getting in the way of yeah, her getting even better. And just yesterday I was with her, and she was doing laps and going on the bike and carrying on a conversation without delay. A lot of times she would have delayed responses to me, and just kind of stare at me because she would get caught up in her thinking when she was trying to come up with responses. And after reading that book, I don't know if she didn't speak of specific insights that she had, but it's been really neat to watch her. Um, I hadn't been with her for, I guess, 5 days since I had given her the book, and I was with her yesterday, and so that was really neat to see. Yeah.
Are you talking about It's That Simple? That Mavis Karn's
It's
that?
that simple.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So if you're listening to the podcast, the book that we're talking about is It's That Simple, A User's Manual for Human Beings by Mavis Karn. And if you're watching, then that's what it looks like too. It's that simple. And it's letters from Mavis. Oh, they're so good. I've read a lot of them
Yeah.
in some of my courses. And the forward is by Michael Neal. And Michael was working on it when I did Empowered Voices with him in person a year or two ago, or maybe two. And so he was talking about it. And so then when I was making a course, I felt inspired and I said, can I read some of these in the course? And he said, oh yes, you have my permission. I'm so excited that you gave, there's so many letters that I love in this book by Mavis Karn. So
Yeah. I feel like I have to smuggle it in because um and sneak it. I've given it to a couple of people that I work with. Because in the healthcare system, it really is focused on symptom management and disease management instead of bringing out the innate health in people. And so anytime I can sneak in this learning, then it makes it's very helpful, and I feel better. And I've been asked to do some coaching at the hospital, and so now I get to like be more open about my my views on how we really really work. So I'm excited about that. That's a new
Oh,
adventure for
coaching
me.
for like the nurses or the doctors.
Yeah. Yep. For the staff.
That's
Mhm.
so exciting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I also read that book with my son.
Oh,
He's 13, and it's helped him a ton um, with his dad. And his dad gets angry and caught up in his thinking. And so my son is like, "Oh, dad's just got a lot of thinking. He thinks he needs to think more to solve all his problems, but he doesn't, and he won't. He doesn't see that. So my son knows that it's okay. That he's doing that, and it's not my son's fault.
yeah, that's great.
Hmm. Hmm.
Well, there's so many questions that I could ask. And I guess you had said before that there you could go two ways. And so with the insights that you're like, oh, these are the insights, or that not, I don't know if the word was insights. This is what you would share with nurses would be, burnout and kind of maybe the health of the helper. Was there
Uh-huh.
another way? Like, I guess when you do you find that there's like a couple common, not lessons, that's not the exact right word, but like lessons that you share with patients, that, kind of like
Mhm.
simple insights that you feel like apply to, um, yeah, I don't know. I'm not wording it exactly correctly. But I was just curious if you said, oh, there was two ways. So this is what I share with the nurses, but what are like kind of common insights that you might share with patients? And I know it would vary depending
Okay.
what their
Yeah, I think just focusing on their well-being. And when I was talking about the two ways that I could go is the health of the helper, but then also seeing the innate wellness in their
okay.
patients too. But with helping patients, I think it's pointing out their resilience, their innate resilience, and their wisdom, and helping them see that, like with this one woman, like her thoughts, that's normal to have those thoughts. Like she's not the only person that has those thoughts, and to try to to help them see that that's okay to have those thoughts. But it's when you start thinking that it's not okay to have those thoughts is when it feels even worse. And I'm not saying having those thoughts is pleasant, but it makes it worse when you think it's the end of the world. You're the only one that thinks that. That adds shame to it and embarrassment, and which is just more thinking on top of this one thought. And to be able to point out, like, you could have a thought of like I, my cat's over there. So like a cat walking across the room, but you don't have any thinking about that. It's just a cat walking across the room. So that thought can come and go just as easy as the other thought. But you've spent so much time thinking that thought, or thinking that your thoughts are bad. But to be able to point out, like, you don't think that it's bad that you have this thought,
Yeah.
and they're really equal thoughts. Like there's no difference between those thoughts. They just pop up. We attach to some of them, and it creates like a snowball, almost like rolling down the hill, where it gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and it creates more energy. And then there's these other thoughts where we don't add any snow to them; they just stop.
Yeah.
Um, so pointing that out, and yeah.
Yeah, that's so true. I have a master class and I talk about with intrusive thoughts why they get sticky. It's an innocent overreaction and an innocent
Mhm.
misunderstanding. And I love that you're talking about that in that way. We could have the cat and we could think, oh, my cat is so cute. I just want to hug my cat. And we don't have to think, I don't want to think my cat's cute. Like we don't give that any energy. We're like, whatever, because we've made up that, or we haven't even, worked hard, but it's like, well, that's a fine thought. I don't have to do anything. But if we have the thought,
Yeah.
I want to strangle my cat, we think, oh, I don't want to think that thought. And then we have this innocent overreaction to it when, and
Mhm.
that's the innocent overreaction and misunderstanding is, yeah, that thing that makes it so much bigger than life and so much sticky and stops it just from, oh, coming and going. Like I have a cat. I have all types. Our cat is old and I didn't have it forever. It was my boyfriend's like old family cat. I love the cat, but sometimes I'm annoyed with the cat because I'm like, oh, it just meows forever. But I don't, like,
Yeah.
well, intrusive thoughts is one of my favorite topics. I think it's so, I've been talking, I was a school psychologist before being a coach. And
Mhm.
every single person has intrusive thoughts. And so, I've been talking about it with 5-year-olds to like my oldest client's probably 68,
Mhm.
and it was like, when that woman said, oh, you have those thoughts, I would have a 5-year-old or a 17-year-old and they would tell me, and I'm like, oh yeah, I've had a version of that. And they'd be, really? Just what you said, it's like, I'm not broken. I'm not weird. And we wouldn't make
Yeah.
that big of a deal of it. And the minute it's like, it pops that bubble, it's like, oh, and having
Yeah.
something that gets it. Oh, and then can also teach them about the nature of thought. Cause that's what I love. It's like the thoughts don't matter. When we zoom out, we see, oh, what's true for everybody. Everybody gets all types of thoughts. And thought, I don't know. I really love, it's so lucky that people, because I have clients that go, that sometimes they hear a story, like a news story sometimes there's certain things that happen and they get really scared.
Mhm.
Of a lot of, there was a story in the news a year or so ago, um, and it scared a lot of my clients, and especially like the postpartum clients or mom clients. Some of them took themselves to the hospital.
Mm.
Let me get evaluated, and so wonderful when people can have an understanding about intrusive thoughts.
Yeah. Yeah. And especially, when you're talking about your kids or something that has been on your mind for so long, it feels bigger. It really does feel big and scary.
Yeah.
And to be able to have that compassion for them and also let them know like that you're okay. It's normal, and they can see your uh, steadfastness. I can't think of the word, but your steadfastness in their well-being. Like
Yeah.
it's so helpful.
I
Yeah.
know. I have had a lot of clients sometimes whose therapists are like, "Oh, wow," and and they get scared, like and so then when they feel me, I'm like, I love that you said steadfast, or it's like I'm like, oh yeah, I've heard that one, and but even if it's a new thought, I'm like, okay, like had to have someone also not be surprised or scared or and when you understand thought, you see that well, all thoughts are fine. Um,
Hmm.
yeah.
Yeah. And without dismissing their fear of it too much, so you're not. I just find that, as a nurse, I we see so many different things, and people come in really, really scared when it's to us, we're like, it's not a big deal, why are you here? But if you said that, like if I said that to somebody, they'd
Yeah.
be like, that wouldn't be very nice. So it's bringing that compassion and kindness piece to it too, where like they're they really think it's a very serious thing, and if you just laughed at them, that would only make it worse. I'm not saying you do that, but that's a big, a
Yeah.
big thing too, where we have to bring that compassion piece into it, and that understanding where we see the bigger picture, but they're still in this like small place. And I think I'm speaking to like nurses, who do deal with things like that. Yeah.
Yeah, we want to be, it feels, even though we might know, oh, what thought is neutral and it's our imagination, it feels so real, especially as you said, when it's something about, I mean, it's our thoughts get brought to life. We really feel them. And especially when we've been thinking about them, yeah, no, it's so important to have that compassionate. I work with people and they are really, really impacted and really scared. Um,
Hmm.
yeah. Well, there's so many questions that I have because it's interesting just getting to know you. I'm like, oh, I could ask about your career, but maybe we bring it back personal if you're open to it. Um,
Sure.
we've talked about um, the principles and it comes to your job, which I think definitely like prevents burnout for me, seeing the health in people, not thinking I have to fix them, you know.
Mhm.
I completely agree with that. It's parenting. Um, I guess I'm curious. Hmm. Well, yeah, but maybe I'll just put it to you rather than I'm asking, is there something that you feel like you see this understanding having an impact in your life that we haven't talked about? Or even if we have, you want to share another story, like if it's your own moods or your own, um, because I guess why I'm saying it is I came into the principles for me because of like panic attacks and driving anxiety, but it's impacted my
Yeah.
life so much every single day, you know, even just this morning having to deal with like insurance and I have diabetes, so I need insulin and I felt very low, very
Mm.
overwhelmed because also my siblings have been in town and it's like all this stuff and it just felt very overwhelming. There's a lot of stuff I needed to deal with. And it's like having this understanding though, it's so solid. Like I feel like, oh shit, there's a lot of stuff. Um, and because it doesn't mean that, oh, I don't like it was very frustrating of this prior authorization and I have no idea how it's going to work out. I'm sure it will work out. I guess I'm saying having this
Mhm.
understanding, life can still show up. I was still a bit overwhelmed
Yeah.
and a bit like disheartened and sad. And I'm still like my grounding of this might feel bad and it's really not. You know, I just see it in every
Mhm.
single area of my life, from parenting to work, that it doesn't mean that life doesn't show up hard sometimes, but I
Yeah.
know that um I know I can see that my thinking is involved. It doesn't mean that I instantly am like, you can't have, I don't know. I'm kind of rambling, but I'm
Mhm.
curious. Like I just every single day I'm grateful that because I don't think I go as low or I stay as low for as long. Like even there, it's like it's just kind of as if I've got a life preserver on, you know.
Yeah.
In so
Yeah.
many areas, like a little, you know, like a little love on my shoulder saying, and I'm just curious if you had any more stories that you wanted to share about the insights or the impact that you've seen, whether it's areas you've talked about or areas you haven't.
Yeah. I think, well, I'll bring it back to the beginning. One of the big things for me was food. And I did Amy Johnson's School of Big Change and was mentored by Joe Bailey for it. And it still hasn't gone away completely. And so I still get a lot of thinking about that. Like, uh, you know, I really thought that coming into the principles, I was just going to feel like light and easy all the time, like life is great and it's all thought. So, whatever. And that's just not the case. And so I still do get caught up in my thinking and I still have habits of thinking that affect me, where I don't always see it as thinking because it's really easy to be able to point that out, like with my patient, it's just thought, or and to be able to point that out. But I know it doesn't feel like that all the time, and it's it's really easy still to get caught up in it. But with this understanding, I know that it's gonna it's gonna get easier, or the thoughts are going to go away, and it might feel like there's something I need to do, and I can catch myself now in that, trying to do something to fix the thoughts. And even last night I had to work late, and being tired is has always been like something that's bothered me. So I was worried about coming to talk to you today. I'm like, oh, I'm going to be too tired. I can't, like, what am I going to do? I'm going to be tired. Am I going to have to drink caffeine? But I don't like to drink too much caffeine, and then I'm going to crash. And like, I had all of these thoughts about it. And I'm like, oh, look at you go. Like, look at all that thinking. Like, how many times have you gone to work tired? Or how, you, I had babies. I didn't sleep for years when my kids were little. So, um, I know that my thinking is making it worse a lot of times, but I don't catch it right away still. And I still like snap at my kids sometimes, or if I am overly tired, sometimes I don't always see my thinking as thinking. It feels very real still. And I used to really judge myself for that. That was a really big thing. Probably about a year ago, I really saw it, how I thought having this understanding, I was supposed to be cured of everything. Like I would have no problems in my life. And if I did, it would be like, well, I can just, unthink it away or whatever. But it wasn't the case. And then I started judging myself really harshly for not being able to catch myself in thought. And I thought that, like, I don't need the principles. They're not working for me because I'm still having these thoughts. And it did take a little while, but I came back to, oh, that's even more thinking. And that judgment was just making it so much more painful and it's so much harder. And I really wanted to help other people, but I really saw that I had to, like, not help myself, but I had to see it even deeper. And that seeing that judgment against myself was kind of an invitation to see it deeper. And um and it lightened it. Once I saw that, like, the judgment was making it worse, I'm like, oh, how would it be if I wasn't judging myself when I did see when I finally did see the thinking was just that thinking, and I did get caught up in it. And so that piece was really big for me to see, that life still happens and I still have habits of thinking. They don't seem nearly as heavy as they did before. And I can see I can see those patterns a little bit sooner. And even if I don't, I just have this, like, deep knowing that I'm okay. So even in those painful, hard times, I know that I'm okay. I I know that I'm okay. And that usually leads to more insights. Yeah.
I love that because I think it's like this deep knowing that I'm okay. And I think it's kind of the theme throughout. We know our patients, our clients are okay. We know that like
Mhm.
humans are resilient, including us, like I think for me when I was really struggling with anxiety, I thought about myself so much and I thought I was kind of special or this exception and zooming out. That's what I love about the principles. We're talking about everybody. We're talking about
Yeah.
ourselves and the people we work with and our children. Um,
Mhm.
and I think I definitely had that where at first I felt so great. It seemed like, with the
Yeah.
principles, and I still feel great. But then I thought the same thing. Well, now I'm never going to experience any anxiety or anything. And then I did, and I'd have this judgment and I'd have more thinking. And then I
Mhm.
had insights around that. And I'm like, well, that's not helpful. Like, and I think for me, I've had a lot going on this past week because I've had family in town, which has been great. But my son's also started baseball and football, and then I run a business. And so
That-
I'm thinking of like, oh, we're going to Disneyland here. We're going to this family day. And how about baseball practice and football? And I knew the thing that was probably making me the most tired was my thinking because I would
Mhm.
stick, got football the next day. But it didn't stop it. But I didn't, it like it, I think it keeps me in a higher level because
Mhm.
also I'm like, well, this is the best I can do. Like I have very light about it. Like I'm like, I know that even I think yesterday I was tired because it was our day after Disneyland, but I have football today and I have a lot. Probably if I didn't think about it, but I can only be where I'm at. Like I'm doing the best I can given the thinking that I had. And I think being in this conversation now for almost
Mhm.
6 years, like I have so much more lightness and patience. And it really is about the journey, not the destination. And I think when I started, it was like, let's get to the destination. If I'm
Yes.
good at these principles, which they're not to be good at, they're just happening. They're happening.
Yeah.
And I think I have such a lighter attitude about my frailties, about um like not doing it perfectly. So all right, I'm
Mhm.
thinking about my tomorrow sometimes. I'm still doing that. That's fine. Like right now, like, and it's like,
Mhm.
it's because I so relate to the thinking about being tired, and I've had a lot of clients and we've had
Mm.
that like kind of a fear of being tired. But I know for me, what's the most tiring is then all the thinking about being tired. It's like we can be
Thinking,
tired. Um, but I love that because I think a lot of people can sometimes get discouraged, like they feel really great. And then life happens and they think, oh no, if I was doing it right, I'd never have a low mood. Um, I'd never feel anxious. I'd never feel tired. I'm doing it wrong. Oh no, you're not. You're not, you're not. And then you get to be light, you take off the judgment and it's like, I think then it's like we take off that weighted vest and we can just be more at peace with being human because Sid would get caught up. He'd get caught up and then
yeah,
he'd get over it. And
yeah.
I think I remember reading in the relationship handbook, Linda and George talked about like getting over yourself. And at first I was like,
Mhm.
like, and I know that kind of is in relation to hurt feelings in relationships, but I get over myself so much faster now. It was really helpful.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. The other thing too with getting into the principles is to hear that well, first of all, it's not a tool. It's just like effective the way that life is. Like you wouldn't use gravity as a tool. Like it's not a tool that you use. Like, oh, I'm gonna use gravity today in this way. No, gravity is just happening all the time. Same with the principles. But a lot of what's said is that there's no practices. I took that as I can't do yoga, I can't meditate, I can't do rep, I can't do any of those things. And it's important. There's kind of a fine line of using those things as a way to feel better, or like if that arises, oh God, it would feel really nice to do yoga right now, or go for a walk or something. But I really lost that faith in like trusting myself when to know what to do. And I felt like a leaf blowing in the wind for a while too, because I was like, well, I'm not supposed to do any practices. I'm not supposed to do this. I'm not supposed to do that. What am I supposed to do? Just sit here and feel whatever I'm feeling. So I think that is pretty common too for people to to do that. Well, the principles say we're not supposed to use practices, and it's not that there's really no rules, but you don't want to not allow what's coming up to come up. I think I
Yeah.
don't know if I'm being very clear on that, but that was another really big thing for me too, where I, I was putting rules around a lot of things.
Yeah. I'm so happy you brought that up because there are no shoulds with the principles. I think to me, it's the
Hmm.
spirit that you do something in. And if you know you
Yeah,
can't, you
yeah,
know you're not broken. Also, you don't have to be like, I have to, oh my God, I can't do yoga if I think I'm broken. But just as if you had someone's not like you just lie there with a burning fever. No, my God. We just don't
yeah.
have as much caught up thinking for most people around the flu. So you might take some Tylenol. You might obviously call out of work and drink some tea and
Mhm.
maybe you take a bath and you watch a show. Like just as you can take care of yourself when when you
Mhm.
have the flu or also in your day-to-day life. There's because I do talk a lot. I sometimes it seems maybe like I'm bashing like meditation and mindfulness and tapping. And it's
Um,
just if you're doing those without the understanding, but you're free to do anything. I love exercise.
yeah.
I love, I love movement. I love um but when I was doing it thinking that I was broken and resisting my
Mhm.
experience, like if I was to walk to stop a panic attack, like when you have an understanding, oh, you're free to do anything, you're free to practice yoga, you're free again. I love the spiritual stuff, like I love um I also love like healing and that sort of thing. But for
Mhm.
me, when I didn't have the basic foundations of understanding thought and understanding mind and how our thoughts get brought to life and innate health, um I didn't have that foundation. um I was like looking for it in all the wrong places and kind of fearing my experience. But
Yeah.
what helped you? How did you return to like, oh wait, I'm free to practice Reiki or yoga? how did you find harmony between that and understanding the principles?
I think it was when last year when I really noticed that judgment piece coming in, and I was feeling so stressed and really at a really low point. And like I said, I felt like a leaf blowing in the wind. I had no like I was pretty down. And when I noticed that it was that judgment piece and bringing a lot of shoulds and rules into it and shouldn'ts, then I noticed that I wait, I can do those things. Like I'm cutting myself off of all these things that I do actually enjoy doing.
Yeah.
Um, but doing them from a different, like you were talking about, a different place. Like it's not to fix anything. Like I still can feel the discomfort of things and not run away from that. And I can still do yoga um, when I feel like I need some movement. And I kind of, even with exercise, I have found I have a much different relationship with it where before it was like, I have to get in my exercise every day. And I do love movement and it does make me feel better, but that rigid, like, it has to be a hard workout where now I can just like, I can feel into my body. And there's days where I need some movement, but a really intense workout is not going to do me any good. It's just going to make me feel crappier. So I'm a lot gentler and there's no rules to it now.
I love
Yeah.
that. It's like very intuitive,
Hmm.
you know.
Yeah. Hmm.
That's same with me with exercise because I did have a point of I don't even know if the right over exercise and exercising after I ate um and now I love to move, but it's not
Yeah.
like I don't do it. Even today I was tired, but I love to go to the 6:30 class, but then my son's missed some school and I'm like, well, maybe I want to get home. And to me also actually when it comes from wisdom, it's kind of neutral. It's like you could exercise or you could not. And that's a different thing for me where it's like it's not
Yeah.
black. You know, usually it's like even if this morning I had signed up for a class, but then I'm like, well, I want to make sure I talk with my son. Maybe I can help him with the science before he goes to school. And it was like, for me, it was like, you know, either way, if you go to the class, it's fine. If you don't go, it's fine. And so, I don't know, it has like
Yeah.
a different feel than when I would have all this thinking around it. You know, and it's,
Hmm.
yeah, I know, and people can, because I think it's, if people like to meditate, you can practice, you can do anything. There's no shoulds,
Hmm.
um, there's no rules, period. You get to do whatever you want, period. And I think
Yeah.
having an
Yeah.
understanding of um the energy behind something
Yeah.
um is is helpful for me. Um yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Just that awareness piece is noticing things. And that's kind of what the not practices, but I think um, slowing down too has been another big thing for me. I used to be very sped up, not only in my thinking, but my actions and everything. And I can tell now um, when I am more sped up and I can just, there's nothing to do, but when you notice it, something occurs to you to do. Like, oh, I need to take a deep breath now. I'm moving really fast, or whatever might occur to do in that moment. Yeah.
Yeah. I love that you said that because we have our own tools where we slow down,
Hmm.
we let go of our thinking, and then we're going to have an idea that's going to be perfect for that situation, whether you're at work or you're in the middle seat on an airplane, you know, and that's why I think it's so
Yeah.
powerful. We just settle down and see what occurs to us because it's going to be
Hmm.
perfect for that situation. Exactly. Like wisdom is going to hand us something at that precise moment, driving in a car, at a party, alone in bed in the middle of the night. Like you know, we have that. And it's so empowering to see. We just wait a minute and then it occurs to us.
Hmm.
And yeah, and sometimes there's so many things, you know, and that's why it's like we don't even have to plan. What am I going to do if this happens? The future you will handle it. You know, that was so
Right. Yeah.
that was really life-changing for me. I would spend a lot of time for like 7 years, kind of, what if I have a panic attack here and thinking? And then when I first came into the principles, one of my early insights was my wisdom got me through every panic attack. That first one, I was not prepared and I handled it, and so I don't need to think
Yeah.
about every single one. And all my thinking is stressing me out. So uh, of course I can handle it. Every single person that's listening, you've handled every panic attack, and you've handled every,
Mhm.
like, yeah. Oh, well, this has been so lovely. Is there anything else
Yeah,
that
it's been,
you wish you shared that we haven't talked about?
I don't think so. We covered a lot. This was great. It was really fun. Yeah,
Oh,
thank
good.
you.
Thank you so much for coming
Yeah.
and sharing. I'm so excited to get to know you and that we got to talk.
Yeah, this has been really fun. Thank you, Lily.
Okay. Well, do you have any place that you want people, also, you don't have to, but do you have anything where you like that you want to promote or you want people to follow you or not? Um,
I don't have anything really yet, so, but thank you. Yeah.
Welcome. Just wanted to
Yeah.
give you that space if you
Mhm.
did.
Yeah. My email, I do have an email. It's just TysonClarson@gmail.com. If anybody wants to email me with questions or any comments or anything. Yeah.
Oh, and
Or
you're
reach out for coaching.
okay. Okay. Oh, wow. Wonderful. Do you just coach nurses and mental health like, um, yeah, who could be your client?
I don't have like a specific, no, anybody. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Tyson. It was so lovely to get to know you.
Yeah, it was great to talk to you, Lily. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you everybody for listening and watching.
Yeah,
Okay.
thanks
I'll talk to
everybody.
you on Instagram or an email. Okay. Bye.
Yes. Okay, thanks. Bye.